Okay, so I've been working as a management consultant for about 20 years. And as part of the work that I do, I help to problem solve for companies, restructure them. But my particular area of interest has always been around the blue collar workers or the staff who are actually bringing in the money for companies. I didn't really want to get involved in the financial restructuring and all of the stuff that the McKinseys and Accentures get involved in. And as part of my work, I got involved in a lot of companies where there's huge stock losses, huge productivity issues, and other problems that they had with productivity in the company. And through that experience, we had solved quite a few crimes, syndicates running in companies, productivity issues, staff dissatisfaction. And we came across a cultural framework that we put together specifically around Ubuntu. And working with staff, understanding what is unique about South African and African staff in comparison to international staff, and seeing what can motivate them and why do they do the things that they do. And essentially, South Africans with Ubuntu work very, very different from people that we deal with, typically on the international forum. We're a family, we're a group, we're a community. But unfortunately, with how many companies manage their staff, we treat them as individuals. And we treat them as separate from the company. You're the worker, we're the company, or we're the management. And that seldom works out. So as part of the Ubuntu framework, what we found is that the average person really just wants to live a good, honest, make a good, honest living, go back home, take care of their families, be a good contributor to society, and make their way through life. We're not bad people. We're not out there looking to commit a crime. So that was my wider background from a professional perspective. And then, through my professional career, as well as just living in South Africa, I've had a good couple of interesting experiences, and this is common to most South Africans, ranging from, house break-ins, attempted hijackings. I've been held against my will by staff at my clients. And through that I really questioned, why was I living in South Africa? Why was this happening? And I'm not a person to back down from a problem. And when you really unpack the problem using my business experience, you realize that there has to be a level of desperation that would take an average person to commit this kind of crime, or to extend themselves to the point where they are either going to get arrested, shot, or get fired from their job. So I really started questioning what was the motivation behind that. As part of that there as well, after these experiences, I got involved in crime prevention in my neighborhood and in and around Sandton. And through that as well, setting up a couple of community groups, security groups, getting involved with ADT and the SAPS to find out what was happening with crime in and around Johannesburg. You really get an insight into the criminals, and we got feedback from some criminals as well as to why they were committing crimes. We used to interview victims in and around Sandton to find out what actually happened during the crime. What did the criminals say as part of the problem solving and providing some community support? At the end of the day, what the criminals were saying was, this is our job. We have no other ways of making money. So, just let us do our work. We're going to be taking the following things. Don't try and resist us. You've got insurance. You're going to get compensated for it. Let's not anyone get hurt. And this is what we hear from victims. And when you start piecing all of these pieces of the puzzle together, you start seeing the underlying problem is that the average South African really struggles to live a dignified life and to make a living where they can take care of themselves and their families. And that's actually what being human is about, right? Is to be able to make your way in this world comfortably and responsibly. It's got to be pretty extreme to move into the criminal side. And there is that 0.1%. I debate this with many, many people. I don't know what the percentage is. There is that minority who do it as a living and they have intent and they see humanity as weak and for them to take it. But I don't believe that majority of the people are that way. So getting involved in these various things, I used to always drive around my community in Sandton. I used to always wonder, things look really clean here. I don't see billboards, these informal signs. I don't see overflowing garbage bins. And I also am very fortunate to live along the river in Sandton called the Sunspruit River. And in the last few years, the Sunspruit River has been quite a safe haven. It's a beautiful, pristine piece of land that a lot of the community go out and use as their green space and train, trail run, mountain bike. And it's always been curious about how did this come around to be? And I used to continuously hear about this person by the name of Dan Hunt. And during one of my projects, I came across him and we got chatting. And he helped me on removal of some rubble. And just asked him, like, why did you do this and what have you been doing? And the story came up something very similar. So he's South African, but from America. And he just said, 10 years ago, I had retired. I was looking out of my apartment window and I saw this pair of jeans hanging off a tree over the river. And it was just driving him absolutely mental. And it stood there for a year or two. And he finally just said, I need to do something about this because that pair of jeans is going to kill me. So he got out. At that point in time, the Sunspray River was basically being run by criminals and drug runners. So I used to study until pretty late at night, and 2 o'clock in the morning, you would hear automatic gunfire on the river. I had called the police out a couple of times to retrieve dead bodies out of the river as well. So it was just not a wholesome place. All the residents along the river had actually bricked up their entranceway, put up high fences, and that was it. And Dan, over the last 10 years, has rehabilitated about a 3.5, 4 kilometer stretch of river to where it's at the level of a golf course, completely pristine, really safe. And during COVID, people have started using that as their green space, just to maintain some level of sanity when we were allowed out to do some exercise. And this huge sense of community built up around it. So what happened with Dan was when we got talking, he told me how he had gotten involved in the project and what he was doing and why he was doing it. And it was really because he's retired. He could basically live anywhere that he wants around the world. And he is just completely passionate about Johannesburg and South Africa. He loves it. And I've never seen someone so passionate about it, where he then took it upon himself to do something to make sure that his retirement years are going to be of a quality that he wants. So when we got chatting, I saw a massive opportunity there to say, okay, if crime is about people not having dignity of finding employment, and Dan is out there making a difference with 4 or 5 people, and he wished that he could do more with people. I then said, okay, if you put the two parts of the problem together, why can't we create employment by taking people off of the streets, employing them in the community to improve the community, and then discouraging them from committing petty crime or being victim to the actual criminal kingpins that recruit them to commit the crimes, and get them being part of our community. And that's where Dan and I decided to give it a bash and to start up City-Zen. I've had some experience in setting up charities before. And we said, why don't we encourage the community to contribute to us? If we set up the charity correctly, we can issue tax certificates back to the community. The community gets to see the impact of their donations on their doorstep. So if I give 100 Rand to City-Zen, the next time I drive out the door, I'm going to see someone in the green shirt and the green cap cleaning or trimming or doing something, and I go like, hey, I created that job. And it creates that circle. And that job is also making my environment cleaner and safer as well, where I can go out and exercise. My property value is being sustained because it becomes a community that people want to come into. So that's basically the story of how City-Zen got started. So the biggest thing with City-Zen is that we need to become financially sustainable. At this point in time, Dan and I contribute a hell of a lot of our time and finances to keep City-Zen running. But through PR and marketing and social media, we're getting more and more awareness out there. So thankfully, with COVID, people became more aware of the work that we were doing. And so our contributions have increased, but not to a level that we are self-sustainable at this point in time. So that's number one, is to make sure that we can keep everything going and make sure that we're out there doing stuff. Number two, we would really like to expand what we're doing in the community that we're working with at this point in time. So we're operating in the Sandton Rivonia area, and we have approximately 5 permanent people and 5 casual labor. And we also work with about 20 beggars and informal vendors in the area. So we would really like to expand that coverage, is to be able to employ more of the beggars that we find at the intersection, homeless people, people that are destitute and looking for work, and as well as expand beyond the 10 square kilometers that we currently operate in to replicate this model in every single neighborhood around the country. So as I said, COVID has definitely risen the awareness of what we are doing and have had a lot more contributions than we previously had. But we're also seeing a lot more people that have lost their jobs. A lot of the construction workers, informal vendors, domestic workers that people couldn't sustain are now having to make their way onto the streets and beg for a living. So we are getting a lot more demand for people looking for work and asking us if they can come and work with us. During hard lockdown, we were running feeding schemes with a couple of other charities that were actually producing food, and we knew the homeless community in and around Sandton. So we saw a massive spike in the number of hungry people and people that just didn't have accommodation. So last year we had a good contribution from one of the companies who contributed sleeping bags out of Australia. That is a self-sustaining backpack with a sleeping bag built into it. That we managed to get 50 people kept warm over that period. I think no more has it been shown than during COVID because of lockdown. And we can see it now. I talk to a lot of the businesses in the area, especially places like Builders Warehouse and Micah. They're saying people are really beginning to invest in their homes because they're feeling, you can't really go out and entertain yourselves anymore. You can't go to the movies. You can't go to a club. So people are finding that entertaining at home with their immediate family is becoming critical. And then also, because of our high density living, people need to get out and about to actually exercise and, to get away from this cocoon that they live in. So a lot more people are out on the streets running and walking and along the Sunstrait River, cycling, trail running, having picnics. So if you don't have these healthy green spaces and safe streets and clean streets, the mental well-being of the residents in our cities is really going to go to shambles. And there's a knock-on effect to that there, because if your mental well-being is not healthy, then it's going to affect your work. It's going to affect your work performance. It's going to affect that business. You could end up losing your job. That business could end up going under. And then it's a short knock-on effect to having an impact on the country. So it starts in your community. It starts in your home, then outside of your doorstep, in your wider community. And if you can actually focus on that and do something in those communities, and everybody's doing that, if 1 million people are doing that, you've got a massive, massive solution on your hands.
True.
And that's where we really want City-Zen to not just to be a charity, but actually to turn into a movement where South Africans are doing for themselves and creating or co-creating their own environment and future. So what we really want to do is for them to help create awareness and to talk about City-Zen as much as possible, to be aware of what we're doing out and about in their environment. And as I said, to contribute to us. We're a formal organization. We're Section 18A approved by SARS, so people can get a Section 18A certificate for a significant contribution. They can see the impact of the work that we are doing every time they leave their homes. And they're going to be part of the solution ultimately of tackling unemployment, improving the environment, and creating a better space for themselves.
Okay.
And sorry, just a point on that there as well. And I need to try and phrase this as politically correctly as possible. A lot of people feel guilt when they drive out of their doors and they hit the first intersection and there are 4 beggars looking really hard done by, looking hungry, asking for food or asking for any kind of help. And out of our compassion as South Africans, we hand out 5 Rand, 10 Rand, 20 Rand out of the window. What we're trying to do as City-Zen is to try and drive a level of awareness where you are now paying for a service to that beggar. Okay, so when I give you 10 Rand, I'm saying that I am happy you being there and you looking destitute and sad and borderline pathetic. And I really use that harshly. But when you're paying someone for a service like that, the damage that you're doing to their psyche and their level of dignity, to say that this is all I'm worth and I'm waiting for the next handout and you are saying it's okay for me to be there, is becoming an endemic culture in South Africa. And the only way to undo that there is to work through formal programs where we can give that person purpose by engaging with them and talking to them and getting them to understand about our community and what our community values. And that we are actually willing to pay them a decent daily wage in order to become a valued member of our community. okay, by cleaning up the intersection and by keeping the intersection safe, by talking to us or talking to the police about any criminal elements that are around, instead of looking pathetic. And unfortunately, that person has no other opportunities in life. He has no skill. He may have actually had a skill and lost his job, but now this is the only way to feed his family. And by us handing money out of the window, we're encouraging the behavior. So we have no right to complain about it. But by working with an organization like City-Zen, where we are actually willing to go out and engage with these people, give them direction, uplift them, and then guide them through life as well as to where they can find accommodation and the kind of food they should eat and how they should save some money. It gives them more direction than they've ever had in life before. So this is where we'd like to encourage South Africans to actually work with organizations like ourselves that you can see on your doorstep. We're not stealing your money. If you're not happy with what we're doing in your community, then you have a choice not to contribute to us. But if you like what we're doing, please help make us financially sustainable. We are out on the streets 2 to 3 times a week, physically picking up litter. And once a week, we go and clean the local dump. So we take about 10 people and we spend an hour cleaning the actual dump itself. We see Pick It Up as one of our partners. And if I can tell you how disheartening it is having to go out 2 to 3 times a week and seeing the same amount of litter out there every single time. It's just an unending waterfall or flood of litter that's out there. So people becoming more conscious of the role that our informal recyclers are playing. It's a critical role where there's money now attached to our waste that can help someone earn money. So if we could actually help split our waste and make it easier for the recyclers to do their job so they can cover more land, would really, really help. Upcycling is critical. Don't throw your clothes out. You can donate it to organizations like ourselves, or we have partner organizations where we can donate clothes and furniture, garden equipment, instead of just throwing it out because it's convenient. And just being conscious of the level of consumerism that we're under. We're really hoping that we can get organizations like, I'm going to name a couple of organizations: McDonald's, Nando's, Chicken Lick, and Coca-Cola, South African breweries. This is the litter that we're picking up on the streets every single day. So if people are more conscious about how much they're consuming and how they're consuming, so not asking for the plastic fork and knife and the extra condiments that you don't need at home, making companies conscious that they mustn't automatically just put that into the bag. Getting these companies conscious as well that the experience of purchasing their product doesn't stop at the till and when they've consumed the product. The experience extends into the community when you see their litter strewn across the taxi ranks and on the streets and in my garden and in my parks. And to get those organizations and communities, again, working with organizations like ourselves to say that we care about our customers, not just in the store, but all the way down into your community. So by creating this level of consciousness, we can really close the circle on consumerism and capitalism.